Hello, this is Kyle back again on Midnight Paranormal Files podcast. Today we are going to be talking about the Fond du Lac Rider. Uh, so now with that being said, this is an article from Pine Barrens Institute. The story begins with a woman named Norma E. Brunner while driving her car through Fond du Lac County sometime in the 1920s through 1940s, the exact date unknown. While she was passing through, her vehicle stalled and she was unable to continue on, recognizing that her uncle John and Aunt Em lived not far away. Norma made her way to their home to spend the night to deal with her car vehicle in the morning. After finishing with their hellos and greens situated within the old farmhouse, Aunt Em made a comment in passing that made mention of the night rider. Intrigued, Norma asked to know more. Even though Aunt Em was the one who made the comment, she advised Norma that it was not the type of story she should hear on such a night, as it would cause nothing but fear. She even told John that he should avoid telling her the story, as she hadn't even known about it before. So there was no reason to tell her now, but still Norma persisted that John tells her the story, and after some time he agreed. Somewhat upset, Aunt Em made it known that while the decision to hear the story was entirely Norma's, she would have no part in either in telling or hearing. So after giving her husband a dirty look and reminding him to give Norma a filled out lamp, filled oil lamp, sorry about that, in which to take to bed when the story was over, because she knew Norma would be scared. This proving woman retired to her room for the night. Once he was certain that his wife was asleep, he began to tell his niece the story she begged to hear. As Uncle John was making hot drinks for the pair to enjoy while hearing the story, he started that while the story was going to sound quite unbelievable at times, it was the God's honest truth. He even went so far to state that if he was the only one who had ever experienced this thing, he would more than likely would even believe it himself, but because others in the area had both heard and experienced the same thing over the course of many years, he had no other choice than to recognize it as being real. Still, though, even after explaining to Norma how bizarre this thing was, he did not want her to think of him as a liar. He simply wanted to understand that it was going to be extremely difficult for someone who had never experienced this phenomenon to ever truly believe it. Norma reassured him that she understood and asked him for to continue. Uncle John started his story by stating that the events which took place so many years prior happened on one night almost identical to the one that they were currently in. It was after a winter storm had rolled through and the entire area was covered in snow and ice. The moon that hung in the sky that night was so full and bright that the entire forest appeared to be stuck in everlasting twilight. John, a young man at the time, was tasked with bringing Cream back to his father's farm, which was located in the area. So, with Cream can in one hand and lantern in the other, he made his way through the frozen forest. The man stated that at the time he had never heard the tale of the Night Rider from his father, but he had never given it much credence. He viewed it as nothing more than a scary story, which the locals put to much shock in. He believed that they were all old and foolish and easily taken in such by an outlandish story. He, on the other hand, was young and smart and not afraid of such ridiculous things designed to scare children. He believed that he knew everything there was to know, and because of this belief, he was not afraid of anyone or anything. But as he soon as he would find out, there was much in this world that he knew absolutely nothing about. As John walked through the woods back to his father's house, he took his time to enjoy that which surrounded him. Typically, he would move as quickly as he could in order to complete his task sooner. But this night, had he decided to slow down and enjoy it. The ice-covered tree branches shined under the moonlight, and the freshly fallen snow crunched under his feet as he strolled along. When he eventually came to a small bridge that lay across a flowing stream, he stood upon it and surveyed the area below. Under the moonlight, John could see a multitude of tracks that he had been made by a variety of creatures coming and going from under the bridge. While he could not see them at the moment, he could faintly hear them, along with those nocturnal residents of the forest. He also listened to the sound of the water flowing over the frozen stones and scattered woodlands debris. But then John heard a source sound that did not recognize, one that sounded strange and out of place. He described it as a resembling low rumbling thunder, but this couldn't have been what it was, and the sky was clear at the time and no one was present. Originally thinking the sound was coming from the sky above, John looked all around for the source, but was unable to find one. As the noise continued to grow louder, the young man stood motionless and focused his hearing on the direction in which he believed it was coming from. Not long after doing so, he discovered that the sound appeared to be moving up the very path he had just walked down. And instant after that realization, everything he heard, had ever heard about the Rider flooded back into his head. The unknown source, which he continued to grow louder, had now changed from a low rumbling into a loud howling, rolling sound, much like the kind may be made by a large wagon wheels on a wood bridge. Determined not to be scared away, John stood his ground and focused his attention down the path to see once and for all what was making the noise. But before he could see anything, the sound changed again, only this time it transformed from something harmless like a wagon wheels into something menacing and ultimately bone chilling. Uncle John said that the sound, which had originally just been mysterious, had morphed into a terrifying, woeful wailing like unnumbered souls in agonizing torment, faint at first, but rapidly becoming louder and closer, along with the other noise now roaring and crashing. Along with this change, the noise was now able to be felt all around him as it was made by unseen force. The pressure and volume of it caused his eardrums to throb and his body to ache. Feeling as if he was under attack, the young man tried to flee, but quickly realized that escaping this unseen thing was not going to be easy. The forceful noise continued to make itself known to John by pushing against his chest and physically knocking him down. Every time the young man would attempt to rise and run for safety, the feeling of a heavy weight would overtake him, pull him back down the ground. The only way he could ever even attempt to escape this invisible grip of this unknown thing was by crawling on his hands and knees through the ice and snow covering the forest floor. But just when he thought he was finally able to escape, the unseen force came at him one more time. John told Norma that when he was fully enveloped by the sound of what seemed like hundreds of screaming voices, it began to slowly press in against his body. The sharpless sting applied so much pressure on his chest and throat that it became difficult to breathe. The young man felt as if he was only minutes away from being strangled to death, but his desire to survive and escape the grip of this phantom hand was so strong that he could continue to crawl towards his father's home. The Knight Rider, though, was not going to just let him go that easy and continued to assault him the entire way. Because of how loud and horrible this noise actually was, John's father had taken notice of it while in the comfort of his home. Recognizing what it was and knowing that his son was somewhere outside in the forest, the old man ran out of his house to help guide his son back home. But even though he was preparing to enter the frozen woods, he didn't have to venture far because as soon as he stepped foot outside, he caught sight of his child in the distance, crawling through the snow and begging for help. Without wasting any time, the old man ran to his son and grabbed him tightly with both hands. The loud wailing and screaming continued to emanate from an unseen host and spread throughout the area. Still being forced to the ground and unable to stand on his own, the father dragged his son towards the house. His mother stood in the doorway, encouraging them to move faster. Finally, when the two men were safely inside the old home, John's mother slammed the door behind them, and the room went quiet. The Knight Rider, it seemed, was gone. The next day, John and his father returned home to the area where the event started. The can of cream and lantern he was carrying that night had been dropped into the snow when the Knight Rider began its assault, but when they had returned to retrieve them, they were nowhere to be found. No tracks were present at the area besides. John's and no evidence existed that anyone out there of the ordinary had taken place the previous night. It was exactly as John had said to Norma before telling his tale. If he didn't know that others had experienced this thing as him before, he would never have believed it ever happened. So, what was this thing known as the Knight Rider? A few explanations have been made over the years for what it could have been, but none really provide a definite answer. What it essentially boils down to is what theories you personally choose to invest the most shock in. Since the events itself is considered to be paranormal, supernatural in nature, the theories are typical of that as well, although some are more scientific than ours. The first theory is that the Night Rider was truly some sort of unknown spirit, not so much a single ghost, but rather a collection of spirits which choose to haunt that particular section of Fond du Lac County. Believers in this theory point out how John states that the noise appeared to sound like multiple voices moaning or wailing in pain and torment. Because of this, many believe a terrible tragedy must have taken place in the area an unknown number of years ago, which ended with a great loss of life. Since that day, the spirits which make up the Night Rider have been caught in a perpetual state of unrest ever since. The second theory claims that the resulting noise and effects associated with the Night Rider were actually created and caused by a UFO hovering overhead. Believers in this theory claim that it is possible that the technology needed to power the unknown craft produced both a noise and force that people at the time deemed as both unrecognizable and unnatural. Not knowing that such technology could ever exist, those who experienced it were only able to describe it and compare it to things they were already familiar with or had read about taking place in our locations. These comparisons include anything from specters, phantoms, and ghosts, and the more religious conclusions, demons, devils, and ghouls. Theory number three is more cryptozoological or whatever. I can't say it right now. It's cryptids. That's how I'm gonna call it. The Thunderbird is what they think it is. Hall presents the theory that passing Thunderbird may have been responsible for the strange noises and feelings that so many in the area had experienced over the years. One reason for this belief is that John stated how he originally thought the noise sounded like a strange kind of thunder and how it seemed like it was coming from the sky above him, but as it got closer, the sound charge changed and began to fill the area around him. Could this strange noise and sensory effect have been the result of unseen Thunderbird passing high overhead? Um, that was the third theory. The final theory of number four is a more scientific explanation of what may have occurred to John during this encounter with the Night Rider. Believers in this theory that infrasound is the culprit behind what many in the area at the time felt they encountered. The reason for this belief is that sometimes, when experienced under the right conditions, infrasound can cause an unexplained sense of both fear and awe in those who hear it, along with those feelings. Some other individuals may experience episodes of inoccupational nausea and disorientation that has led many researchers to believe that infrasound may have actually be directly responsible for one's personal belief that they have been present during the paranormal or supernatural event. Psychologist Richard Wiseman even goes so far as to claim that some ghost sightings might actually be the result of infrasound vibrations affecting the individual who is witnessing this supposed apparition. Could one of these four theories listed above be the true cause of the Night Rider, or could this thing itself be the result of something we as humans cannot even begin to imagine? I don't know. Those are pretty good theories, so I will have to say that for all of them. I just wanted to share this one with you guys. I just found this and I thought it was interesting. Thought I share it with everybody, see what they think. I might have a poll down below for Spotify if you have Spotify, to know if you guys got or anybody has, what they think is or whatever the Night Rider of Fond du Lac is. But anyway, I'll let you guys go. Make sure to like, follow us, Share this with your friends, and I'll talk to you guys in the next podcast.